Welcome to our guests, Daniel Davenport, Capgemini's client partner for North American Automotive, and Atheer advisor Salim Mir. Perhaps you can start by introducing yourselves. Perhaps starting with you, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's great to be here today. My name is Daniel Davenport. I'm with Capgemini in the North American Automotive Group, and I have a long background in the automotive industry, primarily from the standpoint of customer channels, employee channels, digital tools around communications, applications, and support. So thank you very much. I'm excited to be talking with you guys today.
Thank you, Daniel. And Salim, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Salim Mir. I am an advisor to Atheer for the automotive sector. I've spent my career working with BMW in the after-sales area in various functions. And I have also focused on digitalizing the after-sales systems and processes before retiring and working with Atheer.
Fantastic, and thank you for being here, Salim. And I'm Jeff Wheelwright, the Director of Marketing Communications at Atheer, and your moderator for today's discussion about innovation in automotive after-sales. So we'll start with where things have been headed until the world changed earlier this year. What relevant trends were already well established before we had heard the words COVID-19 or novel coronavirus? Then we'll look at the immediate impact of COVID-19 on the automotive after-sales sector, as well as how it's caused a shift in emphasis in some of the key industry trends and created some new trends. We'll then figuratively switch gears and turn our attention to the opportunities for innovation presented by all the trends currently impacting the automotive after-sales sector. And we'll wrap up by asking our guests for their actionable recommendations for dealers and manufacturers. And we'll also take your questions. Please feel free to add questions in the Q&A during the session. If they're something we can answer immediately, we'll do so in the chat. If not, then we will answer them during the Q&A session at the end of this. So these are the pre-COVID industry trends, what we've kind of identified. And I think each one of these important trends were already impacting the way the direction of the automotive industry. Maybe we can start with you, Daniel, to kind of speak to each of these.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Jeff. I mean, I think that this model, the CASE model or the ACES model, is fairly well used in the industry. Connected, autonomous, shared, electric. At Capgemini, we care very much about the sustainability of our practices, both from a business delivery standpoint, where we've committed to be carbon neutral by 2030, but also in helping all of our clients really keep that in a front and center standpoint as they think about delivering their products and services. So we're a little bit unique in that standpoint, but I think all the other four are played a huge role in getting us to where we were pre-COVID. The connected vehicles really driving a whole new range of capabilities, services, features, both for the end user, but also for the dealers and the technicians and the OEMs, as that really unlocks the data capability for these cars and trucks and fleets. Autonomous is very exciting, but many of the levels of autonomy are already covered in cars that many of the cars that we drive today. Automatic braking and things like that don't fit the mold of the Hollywood model, but I think that you're seeing a lot of the technology get down into the cars even that we're driving today. Electric, I'm very excited about, and I think potentially in America we're going to see an acceleration of the electrification of our fleet as the infrastructure and the product kind of meets that. One interesting area that I think is the most different between pre and post COVID is the shared notion, the shared vehicle economy and even public transportation took a real hit. We did a survey back in April, and the people's desire to use either a shared ride service or public transportation was much lower due to health and wellness concerns. And conversely, it drove up the interest in personal car ownership, even in some groups that had not traditionally expressed much of an interest in car ownership, specifically the under 35-year-old crowd. So those are many of the trends that we saw leading up to where we are, and I think are going to still be very present as we move hopefully into a post-pandemic world, but have played a big role in getting us where we are today.
Fantastic. And Salim, what's your perspective on this?
Well, my perspective is a little bit focused on these trends and their effect on automotive after sales. With electric cars, we are seeing new technology, and this technology is changing faster than technicians can learn and that dealers can adapt. So this is something that's that was pre-COVID, and it continues. Connected cars present challenges and opportunities. On one hand, you have these connected cars that make data available in real time through telematics for diagnostics, for learning about consumer behaviors, for learning about the environment in which the vehicle is being operated. The challenge now is how to use this data in a meaningful manner, from a technical perspective as well as from a commercial perspective. And the autonomous cars, and then you'll refer to the driver's assistance systems that are steps towards autonomy, are adding very useful features, but they're also adding complexity to the vehicles. So we see vehicles that are certainly more difficult to diagnose. There are more electronic components. These components interact with one another. There are many more sensors in the vehicles. So when a consumer experiences a symptom with a vehicle, it can have a multitude of causes that become harder and more challenging to diagnose. Combined with the fact that there is already change in technology, these are challenges that have to be overcome through various new means, and we'll talk about them when we talk about innovation.
Fantastic, Salim. It's a great segue actually into our next topic, which was the chronic shortage of technicians that the industry faced. Maybe you want to kick that one off, Salim.
The automotive industry has been experiencing a shortage of technicians because people are leaving the profession for many reasons and going into other professions that are more lucrative than the automotive side. And so when you talk about hiring new people into the business, and when you talk about the changing technology, you immediately think of the challenges in training and supporting these people as they go about performing their functions.
I think that is interesting. I mean, the number you're seeing there is from a September 2020 report by the auto industry nonprofit group TechForce Foundation. And it talks about the increasing demand for professional techs and a declining supply of new techs entering the industry. They're seeing, as it says, a need for 642,000 auto, diesel, and collision techs forecasted to be needed between now and 2024. So, Daniel, as you look at the industry, how have you seen this impacting the manufacturers and the dealers that you work with?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a real problem. And it's a problem from a recruitment and an education standpoint, and then just the working tools and systems that the technicians need to use. I mean, it's a younger workforce out there, and you can't expect them to use green screen computers to look up data and information. I mean, they want to have a computer system that works like the other computer systems that they're used to using. So that can be a big lift for a dealership or from an OEM that's providing those systems. And to Salim's point, you know, there's a wealth of data that's now coming off of these cars, but they're getting more and more complex. So there are more issues to solve. You know, a software-defined vehicle is going to be a very different vehicle to maintain than a traditional, you know, ICE-powered vehicle that we may have thought about in the future. I mean, in the past. So, and then you add all the different electronic car models that are coming into the market this year, next, and probably for the foreseeable future, and you don't have that center of a traditional OEM that everybody knows, oh, well, I'll just go be a Ford technician or a BMW technician. You know, now there's a ton of new OEMs out there making electric vehicles, and there's going to be a massive competition for these technicians moving forward.
Absolutely. And one thing I'd like to add to what Daniel just said, that it's a perfect storm in the automotive industry. On one hand, you have newcomers who are coming with new vehicle architecture, new system architecture, and on the other hand, you have the traditional vehicle manufacturers who are getting into the electric vehicle arena, but their systems are totally disconnected at their or legacy systems, as they're called, and changing all these systems to adapt to the new environment is going to be a challenge, because these systems are absolutely necessary to help to assist and to train the technicians, but they're not connected. The challenge comes also from the fact that the newcomers are coming up with a better IT landscape to help technicians, where everything is connected.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think all of those make for an interesting time. One of the other pre-COVID trends that we saw was the emergence of new business models. So even before the pandemic, we were starting to see the emergence of these new models for after sales, such as after sales service coming to the customer instead of the customer having to come to a dealership. You might, for example, want to have your car serviced in the parking lot of your workplace rather than having to take time off work to go elsewhere. But of course, there are both opportunities and challenges to this kind of mobile service. One of the opportunities lies in the fact that the vehicles are smarter and connected, allowing them to tell remote service agents where they are and potentially what some of the issues on the car may be. And it also creates a data trail that can ultimately inform both manufacturers and dealers about key trends relating to specific vehicle issues, service procedures, and even regional service challenges.
Well, from a business perspective, there are two trends that emerged pre-COVID that have been accelerated by COVID quite a bit. One is the mobile service that you just mentioned, and the second one is the pickup and delivery. And many dealers tried both, and some of them are continuing, and some of them have stopped as soon as they could. And the difference between the ones that were successful and the ones that had more difficulty is the following. Think about it. In terms of mobile service, you need to find this magic technician that's good at managing his or her time, at diagnosing a car, and at talking with a customer. So it's three different skill sets, and it's pretty difficult to find these. Plus, the dealer has to have the right equipment, the right systems to support this mobile service, and as well the right processes. And all this is certainly the future, but it needs to be built. Now that customers have experienced this trend, and it's been accelerated by COVID, it's certainly here to stay.
Yeah, and Daniel, I think that you've had some observations about a lot of the new players in the market and how they're both kind of freed up by the fact that they don't have historical baggage of running a lot of their own existing service operations, but at the same time, they need to provide this for customers and they need to do it in a competitive way.
Well, absolutely. I mean, service, and I think we used to have a fairly narrow view of what service is. Service was an oil change or something like that, but I think that service is going to expand greatly into more of an ownership model, where you've got to provide a lot of different touch points and access and services that add into the overall ownership experience. To Salim's point, the fragmentation of systems is just a huge problem. And even within a dealer model, you may not have one set of systems talking to another set of systems. So to continue down that point about the technician has to be some kind of, superhero where they can deal with people, they can deal with cars, they can deal with systems and information systems, and orchestrate that in a way that it really presents the full brand image that the whole car company is trying to present every single time. I mean, that's a tremendous challenge to try and find somebody that's going to be able to do that. I think that some of the newer entrants are thinking about more boutique models of design studio centers where they have more bespoke service. But even in that model, a lot of the dealers that we were working with had turned to relying on Uber and Lyft and not really needing to have loaner cars as much as possible. So as they were moving towards that direction and that is a solution, all of a sudden the pandemic hit and nobody wants to take that route. So it's a really interesting time. There's a lot of fragmentation in the systems and the processes, and there's a lot of friction still in the customer relations and the dealer relations system that I think need to be ironed out.
All of this, of course, is going to impact how people look at the companies themselves, particularly around brand. So each one of the after-sales customer interactions we've talked about here today can affect brand loyalty positively or negatively. So even before the pandemic, there was already an awareness of the impact of dealer service on brand loyalty. And I know you wrote about this challenge, Daniel, particularly about the importance of companies of understanding their brand. So maybe you want to talk a bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in the past, sometimes some of our systems and our processes and our thinking were a little bit disconnected from the brand. So just from our company's point of view at Capgemini, we may be asked to implement an SAP ERP system, right? It's a big system build, and we have a very defined brand promise for each of our clients. Then you don't get that down into the systems themselves, and if you don't have that continuity at the foundation, then you have huge gaps in between as you go up the stack of services from partner to employee to consumer and maybe other vendors in that ecosystem. So the notion of the brand purpose, I think, has never been more important. I mean, we've got companies like Canoe that are producing skateboards, right? There's a huge commodification going on in the industry, and you see all these iconic brands on this slide. What do they stand for? What are they going to pull through from their past that becomes the beacon of brand purpose moving forwards that people gravitate towards and go, I really want to buy a Jaguar, or, I think I'd like a Porsche or a BMW or a Mercedes. What is it that's going to pull them towards that brand? And I think that that's a key part of how all of these services fit together.
Yeah. Daniel, adding to what you just said, I think now the brand experience more than ever is maybe anchored in the product, but it's much more than the product. It's the whole sales experience, after sales experience, and it's expanding in ways that we haven't seen before. The brand experience before was more or less centered at the dealership, and now with the newcomers and with the trends that COVID brought about, this brand experience is going to the customer instead of the customer going to the brand experience location.
Right.
And we are really going to see technicians become brand ambassadors.
Absolutely. I mean, they're going to be the front line of the brand experience, just like when you walk into an Apple store, the Apple employee, presents that brand right there to the customer. I think that the automotive technicians are going to have a very high standard to meet.
So that's a great segue into talking about some of the new demands on dealers, particularly this idea of people in after sales being the ambassadors for the brand.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen a whole new range of demands from the dealer's point of view, and a lot of it. I mean, there's the customer experience angle. There's also the information systems and the applications that the dealers and the technicians use to meet those customer demands, which are changing and evolving. And again, it's a fragmented space. And I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done to synthesize all of the data into something that field technicians can have at their fingertips and can really use to make the brand experience better every time. I mean, you're not going to be able to achieve excellence across the board unless you have a certain bar of processes and systems and access to that data that everyone can access. Because again, back to our superhero analogy, you may have one or two superheroes. You're not going to have a nationwide team of superheroes, and that can't be your strategy, right? You've got to have the support that they need to get out there and do what they need to do every day.
Yeah, and I think we've talked before about the importance of over-the-air diagnostics to help ensure that technicians for on-site service arrive with the right parts, and that if we use innovative new approaches, that can make it easier to identify if you need a tow truck, a repair van, or what parts to send. And then new technologies such as augmented reality will also ensure that when the technicians do arrive to do the work, that they will have access to the right self-help and remote assistance they need to get the job done right the first time, and then cut the costs associated with having to make multiple visits or involve unplanned trips to get different parts, tools, or experts. At the onset of COVID, all of those pre-COVID trends facing the industry were complicated by uncertainty, and that uncertainty expressed itself in a number of ways, from initial decreases in new car sales, which may have rebounded in recent weeks, but not to pre-COVID levels, tight inventories, which have actually driven up profits in some cases, and a greater overall reliance on sales of used cars and service. And all this has put increased pressure on dealer service departments, which must now generate more profits to do their part in keeping dealers solvent and profitable. So Salim, if you're running the service department at a dealership, or you're one of those new entrants who's trying to figure out a service strategy, what does this put in your mind? What kinds of things do you start thinking about?
When it comes to repair efficiency, technology can provide quite a bit of help. Several technologies, one of them being augmented reality, things that provide contextual information to a technician at a moment's notice, things like guided workflows, reduce search time, and help technicians, especially if this technician is relatively new in his or her job. Data can be gleaned automatically from technical support systems, and it can populate quality control and product improvement systems.
Yeah, and Daniel, I would think at the manufacturer end and at the dealer end, you're going to have that greater demand for online booking. So you've got to have great online booking tools. You've got a heavier emphasis on contactless service and sanitization at the dealers. And you've got even more interest in mobile service. What other trends are you seeing that are part of what, I guess, the post-COVID onset period? I'm not what we want to call it, but something like that.
When you're talking about dealer profitability, there's being more efficient, and I think that that's many of the things that we were just talking about. But there also needs to be new revenue models, right? Where can we find additional products and services that we can sell, on top of our existing platform? And with the connected nature of the cars moving forwards, I think that it's going to open up a whole new ecosystem of products and sales, and probably partnerships and data partnerships as well. Right now, there's a fairly there's a tight box around where the data goes, how the data goes to places, and I think that there's going to need to be some thinking about that. And in all of these models, you can't have, it's got to be a win-win for everyone, right? Because you can't just say, we're not going to have dealers anymore. You can't say we're not going to have OEMs anymore, right? Obviously, and you're not going to not have clients anymore, customers or drivers, consumers. So how does everybody get something out of this new equation that serves their needs and makes it a rewarding experience? I think that, you know, there's a ways to go, and a lot of that is overcoming some of the existing challenges that we've been talking about, and getting to a point where systems are more efficient, and that you get systemic knowledge spread out from when one good technician knows how to do something and everybody now knows how to do it overnight because that process got uploaded and it immediately propagated to the rest of the network. And again, you know, the platform challenges from the connected, autonomous, and electric are going to be here with us, and we haven't even started to get into them. I recently saw that 1.8% of the U.S. fleet is electric right now. So you can imagine the change that's going to happen in the ownership model as people, you know, make such a historic transition from the internal combustion to the electric powered cars. It's going to be infrastructure, it's going to be service, it's going to be, you know, the ecosystem of services around the moving vehicle, mobile commerce, you know, the identity of the vehicle itself, who's the driver. They're all really interesting challenges to unlock and solve.
Daniel, it's very interesting. You brought up the point about additional revenue. I was recently reading a study in Automotive News where dealers who have been active with pickup and delivery service realized that they could sell much more work to the customer because the car was already at the store. The customer already had the loaner car, so when they discovered something that needed to be repaired on the car and they informed the customer of that, customer said, "Oh yeah, since you have the car, why don't you do it?"
Sure.
And the additional revenue is considerable. It's of the order of 20%. So this is an opportunity that's been taken advantage of in response to maybe a challenge that was formed when customers required pickup and delivery, because pickup and delivery has a cost, but now there is a revenue to offset it.
And those are, I'm sorry, those are known services. Like those are pretty much in the box services. We're just going to do these additional repairs, if you will. What about other concierge services? I mean, now you've got the car.
Yes.
Is there anything else that you can add to that? You think about the transition that the hotel industry went through when the internet came around, and all of this, the work that went into the reservation system, right?
Yes.
I mean, just the reservation system alone was a huge industry and took years to really perfect and tune up so that it was just easy to use. We're not there yet from the car perspective, and I think that we're going to see a lot of developments there, and then a lot of additional concierge-oriented services that expand the possibility of new products and services that we haven't even thought of yet.
That's absolutely true. Also, there are some innovations. We talked about the dealer side. There are some opportunities for innovation on the manufacturer side. For example, some manufacturers are looking to AR technology for the management of their warranty claims and their warranty parts. And by doing so, they're saving considerable costs. They're expediting the adjudication of claims, which improves the cash flow for the dealership, and they are removing inefficiency out of the system. So these are the type of innovations that we will see more and more of in the coming years.
In order to meet the challenges posed by both the pre-COVID trends and those associated specifically with the impact of COVID, dealers have had to look at opportunities for innovation, particularly as it relates to both getting access to the expertise needed to get and keep customer cars on the roads and deliver after-sales service in a way that is both cost-efficient for the dealer and helps them ensure the safety of their staff, reorganize their workshops, and provide more flexible work policies. It also means better supporting customer-oriented innovations around both pickup and delivery of vehicles for service, as well as mobile service. On the specific topic of repair efficiency, it means looking at using new technologies such as augmented reality for technical support, also as guided workflows to reduce technician search time for information. AR can also be used for training, quality control, and product improvement, as well as for digital warranty parts check. Also vital is the value of the data generated in the execution of these work instructions, which yield actionable insights for both dealers and manufacturers. So maybe Daniel, we could kind of go to you for a moment to talk about the importance of data for the OEMs and how they use it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the OEMs are a primary consumer, obviously, of the data, and they're using it to constantly tune their systems and processes way back even into the R&D of new systems. I think that there's a big opportunity for using data in new ways and monetizing that data that we haven't quite seen yet. It's still been a fairly traditional approach to data usage. And I think that there are going to be a lot of different avenues for giving that data back into an ecosystem, like to a specific end user perhaps, but then there's also the notion of aggregating and anonymizing that data and providing it in a marketplace concept. I think that we're going to see a lot more marketplace concepts emerge as all of these things get connected and the data gets more interoperable between fragmented systems.
It sounds like an exciting future. What do you think, Salim?
Well, I believe the opportunities for innovation concerning data come on two levels. The first level is all this data that's being collected from the car while it's operating. It's going to help make diagnosis and repair work and maintenance work more predictive and more efficient. And as much as at some point it'll be able to flag an emerging problem before it happens and then help the technician diagnose the problem after it's happened.
As we talked about innovations and new revenue streams for dealers, can you imagine your office, Microsoft Office for your automobile, right? And the technical requirements that are going to need to be provided for the end users to make sure those systems are all working. Having Teams and Outlook and your email and everything accessible through the screens in the car is going to be a whole new realm of support and services that we haven't even considered in the past. So it's an exciting time to be a driver of an autonomous, connected, work-enabled vehicle.
Yes, it is. And I think there's some interesting examples of the kinds of things that are going to be coming at service technicians. And Salim, I think you've got a great example here where you show how we might get to things being easier for the service technician.
Yes, because all these wonderful technologies that are being developed will still have to be maintained and repaired. And in today's world, a technician has so many different sources of technical information that you see here. And these sources of information are created by various departments at the manufacturer at different times in the life cycle of a vehicle. Some during the development, pre-production, and some after the cars are on the road. And one of the ways that AR can help make repairs and maintenance much more efficient is to aggregate this information in a contextual background and serve it to the technician in a way that's easy to consume, helping the technician with logic guidance, especially in diagnosis, and with providing the technician with the right data at the right time, also collecting data back regarding what the technician finds in this specific repair. So this would make the entire process both ways much more efficient.
Yeah, and Daniel, how do you think that the manufacturers that you work with are looking at this challenge?
Well, AR as a tool to solve some of these issues is absolutely in the top of mind for many of our manufacturers, and not really even just automotive manufacturers. All manufacturers are thinking about how they can employ advanced tools for their engineers and mechanics and designers to really bring together the whole process into a much more fluid and fast CAD to construction kind of mode. So I think it's really an exciting time to be introducing these new AR, mixed reality, and even virtual reality for training tools to bring into the mix new technicians and new workers and get their training done so much faster, and then have that on the floor support that they need that's just not possible in any other way.
Yeah.
So what we're going to see here, the innovations are really about, not only about the technology, which is available to many people at the manufacturer and at the dealer. It's how this technology is used. This is where the real innovation is happening. And we can talk about technical support, which is the traditional way that people think of supporting a technician. But then we have to think about how we can use data gleaned during technical support for quality monitoring, for warranty parts check, thus eliminating shipping, for warranty and recall management, for new vehicle inspections, and so on. And you mentioned training, Daniel. This is a very important aspect, because rather than take a technician to a training center, we can take the knowledge to the dealership, and the technician can experience the knowledge through AR or VR or some mix of both. And again, that can make the training much more frequent and less expensive in terms of travel time. All of this, obviously, with the aim of supporting a better customer experience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Salim. Daniel, how does that align with what you're hearing from manufacturers as they look at innovation and ways in which they might use these technologies?
Well, I think that aligns perfectly. I mean, all of these things are huge areas of opportunity and places where efficiencies can be realized, and you can train in new systems. But there's the customer service experience is still that paramount thing. And so when someone drives in and their car gets fixed quickly and the first time, that's really at the end of the day what everything is about, and that's going to drive repeat customers, loyalty, and that's going to drive profitability. So if you can put systems in place that drive that kind of productivity and efficiency, then that's a huge game changer. And so I think that you're seeing and are going to see even more use cases for AR, MR, and VR, and that's just on the kind of the back office, right? I mean, when you think about the desire for contactless commerce and transactions and experiences, there's a lot of people that are doing the AR driving test drives, right? VR test drives. As AR and VR equipment hardware get more common in the marketplace and more of a mass market tool, like I'm sure we're going to see coming up here, I think that you're going to see a lot more of the automotive manufacturers spending dollars on creating augmented reality test drive suites. So it's really, there's a lot coming.
You're absolutely right, Daniel. The same technology that can help a technician can also help a customer who's trying to learn about his or her new feature in the vehicle. Or sometimes it enables the technician to contact the customer and say, look at what I found on your car. So it's the use of the technology that is really the out of the thinking box.
Absolutely.
Out of the box thinking, excuse me.
Absolutely, and you see the opportunities for customer training and really enabling them to make full use of all the fantastic features and functionalities of the car that they may not have been able to drill down into when they picked the car up and I don't know how many people actually read the owner's manual, but I suspect it's not a very large percentage. So, you know, you may be able to quickly train someone on how to use a new, you know, touch panel, and they can really get much more enjoyment out of the vehicle that they've purchased.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was smiling thinking about an owner's manual. The most recent examples are an owner's manual on AR by
Yeah.
one of the by one of the major manufacturers.
Yep. It's a great application for it.
Yeah, and so I guess at the end here, we've got to look at what's the impact for the manufacturers and for the dealers of all of this innovation. And maybe, Salim, you want to speak to some of these points, and then we can get your take on it, Daniel.
Sure.
Well, it's a summary, in fact, of points we all made. I just remember Daniel talking about a minute ago about improved first-time fix rate. That's definitely something that will be impacted by improved repair efficiency and accuracy. Reduced service resolution times. Customers want their cars back quickly. Time is so important to all of us now. Obviously, customer satisfaction and dealer profits are things that will drive the industry, whether the internal combustion vehicles are concerned or whether the electric vehicles are concerned. And these are going to be some challenges to the newcomers, because customers are not really focused on what's the technology driving the car. They're focused on the experience, on how satisfied it makes them. On the manufacturer side, you know, the idea of combining technical support with quality monitoring, it's a two-way communication. You help the technician and you collect data from what they've done, and you put it into your quality system to improve future product or to help other technicians fix cars. Technical training without travel costs, remote inspections and audits, and then the ability to look at warranty repairs much more accurately and much faster, and therefore improving cash flow for the dealers. All these are positive impacts that are going to help overcome the challenges and the costs that we talked about a little bit earlier when we're talking about trends, because some of these trends involve costs for sure.
And Daniel, how do you see this resonating with the companies that you talk to?
Well, to Salim's point, the trends are all pointing in a direction of greater complexity, but also greater opportunity. And I think that there's some other factors. You know, we've got a shift in the concept of how the OEMs and the dealers work with the customers to create a more seamless environment, a more frictionless environment. And so I think the impact is going to be astounding, particularly probably over the next couple of years, right? I mean, I think that we're getting ready to hit this ramp where things start to change, and I believe that the pandemic has accelerated all of the trends that we've been seeing, and really there's probably no going back now that the customer has been introduced to a couple of new ways of interacting with their vehicle and with the people that help them maintain their vehicle. So I think it's a very exciting time. I think that technology is a supporting tool, but the processes and the people part of the equation are what's going to really make the real difference. So I'm very excited to be working with all of our OEMs and tier ones and dealers to provide that customer experience, and using tools like AR and VR to help on both the front and the back office issues is going to be an important factor moving forward.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the last thing before we get to the Q&A that I wanted to touch on is when we were prepping this, I asked you each for a couple of things that people could take away from this discussion. And I've summarized them here. And maybe, Daniel, you want to speak to the first two.
Yeah.
Salim, you can speak to the last three.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I think the reduction of fragmentation is something that we've hit on throughout the course of our discussion. but it's so important to be able to provide an actionable foundation for really everybody in the ecosystem to be able to build upon. So reduction of fragmentation is a huge issue, and we see it, daily, and just the systems that need to get migrated and lifted up and made faster and more efficient. And then the investments in digital channels, it can't be understated, right? I mean, anyone that was not already investing and had been investing in their digital channels, come April or certainly May of this year, was really feeling the impact of that, as there was so much reliance, certainly through a customer relations standpoint, but also employee relations, right? The dealers that had to send all of their salespeople home and all of their employees home, or the manufacturers that had to send their workforce home, they needed strong systems to be able to keep those folks working and productive. And so I think that you're going to see an increased emphasis on digital channels, and that's really going to be better for everyone.
Great, thank you, Daniel. And Salim, do you want to speak to the last 3 points?
Sure. We mentioned before that we have many newcomers into the technician arena, and we're not going to be able to train and support young people with tools that are antiquated. Not only won't we keep their interest, but it will not be efficient, and we won't be able to hire the talent needed to meet the skills shortage. And as far as innovations, we talked about the fact that innovations will have to have more or less a holistic approach, not a fragmented approach, so that providing support, collecting data, and integrating this data into improvement systems, whether for technicians or for product improvement, are used in a holistic manner, are managed well, and are used in a holistic manner. And this will not only improve the product for the future, it will also help build a better customer experience that supports the brand. Because more than ever, as we're talking about digitization, and as we're talking about mobile experience, the brand is going to be this whole ecosystem wrapped around the product and wrapped around the service facility, wherever it may be.
Thanks, Daniel and Salim, for those great insights. We'll start the Q&A in just a minute, but before we do, I'd like to extend an invitation to get in touch if you want to learn a little bit more about how we've helped companies around the world meet the challenges faced by their frontline teams in the fast-changing environment we heard about today. You can either visit us on our website, atheerair.com, or drop an email at info@atheerair.com. We'll now give you 30 seconds or so to send us your further questions in the questions box, and we'll put those to our guests. We look forward to hearing what you have to ask. Thank you. Let's start with the first question. You both talked about many of the new electric vehicle entrants expected in the market in 2021. What do you see being the biggest challenge they'll face? And on the flip side of that question, what's the biggest challenge they'll create for existing established players? I'll probably start that one off with Daniel, and maybe we can then go to Salim.
Sure. I mean, I think that we've kind of covered some of the ground on where we're seeing these challenges. It's the dealer network. How are you going to do that? It's the service capabilities. How are you going to provide the technicians? What is the ownership experience going to be like? And how are you going to introduce a brand new brand into what is a very well-established marketplace? And then the flip side is, the ones that do that successfully are probably really going to provide some challenge to the established OEMs, because they're going to be new and fresh, and it's representative of a lot of current thinking, current tools and systems. And so it's a double-edged sword. Probably the challenges are also going to be the opportunities.
Well, I'll focus, as usual, a bit more on the after-sales side of this question. I think by far the number one challenge for everyone is going to be to find technicians. And then for the newcomers, the challenge is going to be they're going to have a new product, new people, and new systems, and they're going to be using them all together at the same time. So the opportunities for mistakes are numerous. Plus, it'll take time to train the people and instill whatever company culture the newcomers want to instill. On the positive side, what the newcomers will have is a lack of legacy systems and legacy thinking. In other words, people will be more open to innovation, and what we talked about a little bit earlier, the landscape for technical support and product improvement can be created in a more holistic manner rather than having fragmented systems that people have to use in order to repair a car, in order to report a technical problem, and then in order to improve the product. So these are two things that come to mind. There are obviously others, but in my mind, these are the two most important ones that I can think of.
That's great. Thank you both. So we're getting quite a few questions now. First of all, a question that comes up all the time is there going to be a recording of the webinar? And yes, there is. And everybody here will get a link to that recording when it's available. Next question, how do you see the dynamics moving forward regarding the use of virtual presence devices in service departments, such as wearable computers?
Salim, you want to take that one?
Yes. A wearable computer has many definitions. I'll talk for a minute about the glasses specifically. I'll talk about other devices. The glasses have a good application when you need to have both hands free. They're not necessary all the time. It's when you are trying to see a document such as a wiring diagram, or you're trying to follow a test plan, it's much easier to follow it on a tablet. So there will definitely be quite a number of augmented reality devices in the service workshop. There are quite a few today, but they will increase. And then one of the things that we can think about is in the parts department of a dealer, an augmented reality device can help locate the right part on the shelf, pick the right part. Some dealers I've spoken to in the last few months mentioned the difficulty of matching the part that is needed, that they're ordering, to the part that they're removing from the car, not necessarily because there's no part number, but because that part could be a piece of upholstery, and with the same part number, you can have 5 different colors. So these are things these are small but important things that will drive efficiency. All of a sudden, you can show somebody at a parts depot 1,000 miles away what's the exact part you need, as well as highlight the part number. So this will come very, very quickly. It is coming as we speak and will be used more frequently.
Do you have anything that you wanted to add to that, Daniel?
No, I mean, Salim's obviously a professional in this area. I think I agree with everything he just said.
Thanks for that, Daniel. So next question is, a lot of the benefit from the innovations that we've looked at today, including AR, comes from automotive companies taking a digitally enhanced approach to after sales. We all know that showrooms and digital marketing initiatives have been popular in recent years, but it seems that there's been a bit of an underinvestment in digital transformation in service departments and after sales generally. Is that fair? And how do you see that changing, and what are the drivers of that change? Maybe we start with you, Daniel.
Sure, I think that's totally fair. I think that in some ways the need wasn't really there in that particular area, and so the focus was in other places. But now I think that we all see that there really is a critical business value to having the best systems for the service employees to get to that brand, experience that we want to be able to provide.
Um, there are a couple of things that are forcing change, and this change is going to require an investment in money and in time. Things that are forcing change is the changing technology. People, technicians, and people in general can learn at a specific rate. They have to spend time working as well as training. The other thing is the complexity of a car. If you think of a vehicle today and a car only 5 years ago, the complexity is increased tremendously. And the ability to diagnose problems, not to specifically repair a car. It might be easy to replace a component, but finding the component to replace has become a much more involved task, and technicians need help doing that. So these are drivers of change. And manufacturers cannot have an infinite number of people providing technical support. They're being driven to use guided workflows as an example, because these guided workflows will help technicians, and they don't require a specialist on a one-to-one relationship with every technician. The other thing that will drive change is the need to take knowledge gleaned from one service experience or a number of service experiences and turn it into best practice. So accelerate the spread of knowledge in order to meet the rate of change in complexity and in technology. And these are the factors that are accelerating change and forcing the investment that is, it cannot be discounted because it requires a lot of effort. On the other hand, companies that started handling the mindset of accepting change are seeing a much easier time in implementing these technology changes.
So I have a question here from someone who's been working in AR in Europe, and they're wondering kind of what you've seen, and I'll throw this to you, Daniel, as well, just in terms of digitization. What's the kind of timeline that people typically look at for this kind of work? And I know that that's accelerated a lot with COVID. But so, and maybe we could kind of build on that a little and just maybe start by talking about what change you've seen to the timeline, because broadly, I think we've seen it's getting a lot quicker. People are going from, well, I want to try things out over the next 6 months to, no, I got a problem I need to deal with now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the big thing that's come out of the pandemic is the acceleration of everyone's timetables. And whether that's a virtual showroom or transformative technology, AR in the technician's bay, all of that is going to happen a lot faster. I think it was Mercedes had an ad, a national ad in April of a virtual car, demonstration, right? So that had to have happened incredibly quickly for them to get in market with that kind of ad message. So I think that's emblematic of what we're seeing across the board, and in every aspect of this is just a real acceleration and a real push to get new capabilities into the channel as fast as possible.
I'll give you a very
Salim, and I'll throw that one to you as well.
Very practical examples. Couple of dealers I've spoken to in the last 2 months, some in the States, some in Europe. During the lockdown that happened in various countries, the technical specialists who used to help repair difficult cases could no longer travel. So dealers were left with cars they literally could not fix. And the first thing they did, they used the augmented reality glasses and asked for help from a specialist that could not travel, but that could help them. And that was kind of an aha moment for these dealers. So, wow. So it overcame the reluctance, and almost overnight, in a couple of days, they became advocates of augmented reality technology. Whereas in the past, they were interested, they were not resisting it, but they were giving it considerable thought.
Great. Well, thank you both. This has been fascinating, and I think we've learned a lot. If anybody wants to reach out, the website and email address are on the screen. If you have any further questions, we'd love to talk to you. With that, we'll wrap it up because we're at the top of the hour. Thank you all again, and we'll be back with another webinar soon. Thanks again.